What is up, everyone? Welcome to Seth Leroy Adventures, and this is a continuation of the series of Get to Know Me, so that you can, if you're new to the channel and you were like, oh, what's this dude about, and you went to this is going to be the series for a little while on getting to know me. It's topics, but also just getting to know me and me getting to know you if you have any questions. But this next topic is a Minnesotan experience fishing in other states, and like the differences that I seen and why I personally love Minnesota fishing. Now let's get down to brass tacks. I fished like all my life in Minnesota until I was about in my late 20s. I don't want to get into the dates and times, and I moved to Florida, right? I moved there for about 3.5 years, right? We ended up selling our house there and then moving back home, but to Minnesota. But anyways, let me tell you the difference for me. Okay, I get there, I love reptiles, alligators, all that. So to me, that wasn't even a big deal. I was fishing, even one time on a frog popper, got one, and it caught a, by accident, caught one. So let me tell you, that was sick. I loved it. That stuff was cool to me, being all around alligators, big alligators. That was fun. So that was a plus. Big plus for Florida, and seeing water moccasins and constantly the different wildlife. That was awesome to me. So this isn't just why like I love Minnesota fishing and everything else was whatever to me. It's not at all like that. I'm just talking about a Minnesotan, the land of the 10,000 lakes, the difference like of what I felt. So I lived out in Florida, you know, I did ocean fishing off piers, with drop nets, all that type of stuff. I've been on charters in the ocean. I caught a blacktip shark on a charter. The fishing off of the big piers and stuff, it was cool to me. The vibe was cool, like people catching barracudas and groupers, and I actually had a grouper one time hit a spade fish that was insane, and I actually had him on for a little bit, but then he broke off. But anyway, so such cool experiences. So this ain't me at all gonna be hating on other states. A lot of brackish water fishing, because I lived in Titusville, which is by NASA and by, you know, by brackish water. Now brackish water is mixed, like freshwater and ocean water. I might not be 100% on everything I'm saying, but you know, caught a lot of stingrays, got a lot of puffer fish, caught a lot of catfish. Definitely had fun. But for me, like with the shrimp, the mullet, just everything, I didn't get to lure fish much. I would go for it and attempt it. I think I only caught one pickerel. That's like a northern pike, but they're smaller down south, because I didn't know. My brother-in-law, back when I lived there, he lived there too. He's like, what, did you catch a northern? Because he didn't really know about the pickerels either. It's like a smaller northern. But man, I had fun. But I'm just saying the differences. But so for me, that's a comparison that with Minnesota bait even, because I'm more of a lure fisherman anyways, I just didn't have a lot of luck on lures. It's probably I just didn't know what I was doing. So I mainly fished with shrimp, mullet. And this is from other Minnesotans that follow me, to stumble upon me, to get to know sort of my fishing adventures too. I definitely am going to go back to Florida again and fish. It was a lot of fun. But for me, like, just I am so Minnesotan when I'm fishing. Like when I go out now, like I'm catching 15 fish on a lure. Sometimes, you know, when it slows down or when I have a bad day, I don't. But I'm just saying, it's like, and it's just get up and go. Like I felt like for me, I'm ADHD, so for me with Florida fishing, it was a little bit more prep, which is fine. I'm just saying, but for me with Minnesota, I can grab my poles and I'm just done. I'm ready to fish and it's over. You know, kayaking in Minnesota, you know, wader fishing in Minnesota. I even worked on docks though in Florida in the brackish water with bull sharks and alligators. So trust me, I wasn't scared. But it's still, that's something good to me about Minnesota fishing too, is like I'm stepping in the water, like still in the end, yeah, you could get a dorsal fin through your foot if we were talking bullheads or catfish, but it just, still though, when you got stingrays, bull sharks, and gators, it's a big difference. So I'm not going to act like I wasn't still a lot more apprehensive, or when I'd be deep in the water, you know, obviously that goes through your mind, and with water moccasins. So bringing my kids to the water too, I have 5 kids, so being a Minnesotan, I love that I can just go to lakes and this and that, and I'm not really concerned about gators and water moccasins, so that's another plus for Minnesota. That's why I'm saying I wanted to make this video for you to get to know my fishing experience and just how I feel about this stuff. And trust me though, I love Florida. I'm not digging at Florida. As you heard, a lot of the positives that I absolutely loved about Florida fishing. Mainly for me, wildlife, because if you watch my fishing blogs, I'm all about wildlife. I'm all about it. So seeing those types of animals, and I'm big on reptiles, I'm big on snakes, alligators. One time I accidentally ran over an alligator too, like a deer, like tried to swerve, got him. It was sad. I got out, he was like 6 foot. It was pretty crazy. As you see, my ADHD. So that's why for me too, though, like mainly fishing with mullet and shrimp, it's just not my speed. Yeah, so that's why like with Minnesota fishing, it's my bread and butter. But that's sort of like, if I think of anything else because of my ADHD, I will say more about the Florida fishing though. But one more thing too, like I do want to say about the Florida fishing too, is like it was definitely a culture shock. But now I want to get into the next area I lived, but I only lived here for a little bit, but Georgia, and I fished a little bit in Alabama. So now, here's the thing. Georgia and Alabama, from what I learned, I fished the Chattahoochee only once too, but I didn't really get too into it either. I didn't catch anything. I was using my normal Minnesota lures. But here, let's talk about the lakes. Now, my brother-in-law once caught a giant largemouth. Like, the biggest largemouth I've ever seen in Alabama. Huge. I can't even say the weight. Just freaking, massive. So when people sometimes will hate on me on my Minnesota fishing, it's not a lot. It's mainly love. But someone will be like, that ain't nothing. Is that an up north bass? I'll be like, yeah, well, we got the pike. So, so that's what's cool, though, is the bass are giant. Like, and that's sweet. That's dope. But I love my pike. So that's another thing. Let's talk about that. I like the pike up here and muskie, and so that's sort of a trade-off, though. The bass are giant. So I did get to see a giant one, and I caught some giant ones in, golf courses in Georgia. But here, let's talk about Georgia, Alabama. So many private lakes now. Maybe someone from down south can tell me differently. And in Florida, too, that was something I didn't touch on. Like, there weren't many lakes. So for me, as, in the land of 10,000 lakes, I'm so used to being able to drive to 50 million lakes. Like, it's like so foreign to me to just not, like, have, like, 50 lakes by me. So that was weird for me too, but then when I got into Georgia and everything was private, like even this little lake that we fished behind my father-in-law's, which was fun, and we catch some bass and we catch some cool fish, but everything was private. There were so many private, I didn't even really, like, and then when you would go to like a public lake, there wasn't that good of fishing in my eyes. Like, I'd only catch a couple little bass, so that was so hard for me. Like, there was already a reduction of lakes, but then when most of the lakes that were there in these areas, unless I was just in the wrong areas, like I was around Noonan, Georgia, I was around Florida, Central Florida too, and so what I'm saying is just in Alabama, I was by the Talladeganites. I think that's where I was by. I'm just didn't, to me, with less lakes and not as much access to them, some you had to pay for you, and I'm like, dude, what is going on, man? Like, that was hard for me. Just like, coming from our spoiled, where I just can go to any lake. And what's crazy is I'm not even a big ice fisherman. Like, I don't even really care to ice fish as much. I just go crazy when the water's open. So like, that was one thing though I did like about Florida though, year-round fishing. That I did like. So that's a plus for Florida too. So I definitely want to get a house out there one day too. Now the only other, gosh, when I owned my cargo van business, some of you used to watch me back then, I would travel all over. I wish I would have fished a lot more. I wish I was fishing blogging then, but it is what it is. But anyways, Tennessee, the Tennessee River. We stayed in the mountains at a cool Airbnb for like a week or whatever it was, and I fished the river like a lot. Every morning like I do now when I'm vlogging it, but I wasn't vlogging it back then, but I wasn't catching nothing. I was using my normal Minnesota lures, and then finally my stubborn butt finally looked up like trout fishing and or what to use, and then I had 2 trout on. And I was excited because, I was fishing there a couple days. Maybe it wasn't a full week, like 4 days or something, but didn't catch anything, but it was still beautiful and cool. Really beautiful. It was almost so breathtaking, the scenery in those mountains and those rivers, that like it was like worth it either way. Like, it was like, oh, I didn't catch anything. But yeah, that was my experience in like Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia. Well, honestly, to sort of finalize this, like, this is why I'm so in love with Minnesota fishing, and it might be just because I was here all my life, but it's also because there's so many lakes, so many river systems. It's just nonstop. Like, and I can, like I said, and I've been so used to it, I can just pick up my poles and go. Like, it's not even, I know where the fish are hitting, especially I'm from central Minnesota. I fished it all my life, so I know where to go. And just, I really like how, like, there's barely any private lakes. Like, I know of one private lake down the way. It's called Lake, I think it's Thompson or something. And I think that's what it's called. I might be wrong. But either way, what I'm saying is that's, like, rare here. Like, I didn't, like, when I moved down there, or was living down that way, and there was just so many private lakes, even though there's far and few between lakes. Like, I just was like, wait, you're saying this lake is private? Or, like, when I pull up to a lake to have to pay, I'd say, I'm not doing that. I had money, too. But it was more of, like, a Minnesota thing. I think I did pay for one, because I was just like, dude, I just want to fish. So, yeah. So, that's probably, like, for me, that's why I love Minnesota fishing. But as you saw, Florida, I was there 3.5 years, so I got to really experience that. And there were things I loved about it, like I said. It wasn't all bad, but it's just, I am such a Minnesota fisherman that it's just, it's insane. So that's my video on, like, experience being a Minnesota fisherman in other states. And I would like to hear your experiences, or where you're from, or what you like to do, or have you fished the land of 10,000 lakes? Have you been around? I'm sure some people would come from down south and go, this is horrible, or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, that's it for this one. Like I always say, we live in the land of 10,000 lakes, so what are you doing? Go fishing. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm just glad you're rocking with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, getting to know me, getting to know sort of my fishing history, and just, I'm going to keep this series going for a little while now. But yeah, everyone have a blessed one, and oh yeah, keep fishing.